Who do you think has the most handsome face in K-dramas right now? Today we're diving into the male actors known for their handsome visuals, the ones who don't just look good, but completely take over every scene and set a standard that feels almost impossible to reach. And here's what makes this even more interesting. One actor on this list has a feature that's rarely seen among Korean men. Let's get into it. 12. Seo Kang.
손목이거든?
내 타투거든?
뭔 개소리야.
나도 모르는 사정상 지금은 네 손목에 있지만 원래는 내 거라고.
What does the ideal K-drama male lead actually look like? Honestly, it probably looks like Seo Kang. He's the kind of actor whose face just works. Tall, model-built frame, sharp jawline, high nose bridge, and proportions that look clean from literally every angle. The camera doesn't struggle with him at all, and people noticed early. Korean netizens were already breaking down his features, even ranking him in discussions about actors with the most balanced facial structure. He's soft enough for romantic close-ups, but defined enough to carry authority in a scene. That's why he fits so naturally into the K-drama leading man mold. You can see that across his projects. Love Alarm first drew major attention to his visuals. Even the promotional photos were already trending. As one of Netflix's early K-drama pushes, his face did a lot of the heavy lifting in pulling viewers in. Then Sweet Home showed a rougher, more intense side without losing that clean structure. But if we're talking about where his appeal hit the hardest, it has to be My Demon. The styling, the suits, the composed energy, it all leaned into a polished, almost untouchable elegance. His visuals fit that slightly unreal, almost seductive male lead image perfectly, like a character designed to look flawless from every angle. 11. Woo Do-hwan.
너랑 나랑 만든 인파이팅을 믿자. 우리를 믿자.
There are actors who look handsome, and then there are actors whose face carries a certain intensity. Woo Do-hwan definitely falls into that second category. His features lean more masculine and defined. Thick brows, deep-set eyes, a sculpted jawline, and fuller lips that give his face real weight on screen. It's not the soft flower boy type of appeal. It's sharper, more striking, and harder to ignore once you notice it. And that's exactly why he's often labeled as an underrated visual in K-drama conversations. He doesn't fit the typical mold, but he consistently turns heads. What really sets him apart is his gaze. It shifts depending on the scene. Calm and controlled 1 second, then intense or even slightly unsettling the next. That range makes him visually interesting, not just attractive. If we're talking about a project that really elevated his look, Bloodhounds brought out something completely different. The boxer build, the rougher styling, the physicality, it gave him a harder, more rugged edge, and it proved something important. His face doesn't need polish to command a scene. If anything, it hits even harder when things get raw and real. 10. Soo-hyuk.
난 너를 저승으로 인도해주지.
Some faces feel like they belong in fashion editorials, and Soo-hyuk is definitely one of them. His look doesn't feel typical. It feels almost designed. You can see it immediately. Razor-sharp cheekbones, deep-set eyes, a long sculpted face, and proportions that lean more high fashion than conventional leading man. Korean media and netizens have described his features as non-human or CG-like. And in K-entertainment, that's basically the highest compliment. It means the symmetry and sharpness are so precise, they almost don't look real. In fact, his visuals feel so unreal that your gaze just naturally gravitates toward him the moment he appears on screen. And that presence doesn't just work in dramas, it carries into global fashion spaces too. Even at international brand events, surrounded by top models and major celebrities, he still stands out effortlessly. That's how strong his visual impact is. What makes him even more memorable is that his look doesn't aim to be warm or approachable. It's colder, more deliberate, and incredibly striking. You can see that clearly in Tomorrow, where viewers pointed out how closely he resembled the original webtoon character. It genuinely felt like the character was drawn from him, not the other way around. 9. Dong-wook.
내 선물이야. 반쪽이 약해지면 너도 약해진다며.
How does a face stay this relevant for this long? Lee Dong-wook is one of the clearest answers. His features are sharp and long-proportioned, a sculpted jawline, composed expression, and a naturally cool aura that just reads expensive on camera. It's not loud or flashy, but it holds your attention without trying. What's really impressive is how consistent that appeal has been. He's been named an ideal type by Ahn Hyo-seop and multiple idol group members over the years, not just in one era, but across generations. You can see it in how people talk about his features, too. Korean beauty communities have used his jawline and overall structure as a reference point for ideal proportions, and during Tale of the Nine-Tailed, his visuals kept trending. Whether he was in a tailored suit or an elegant hanbok, people couldn't help but notice how effortlessly he carries both. What makes it all work is that his appeal was never tied to youth or softness. It's structural, the kind of face that adapts, whether the styling is polished or completely stripped back. Tale of the Nine-Tailed showed his most refined, almost ethereal side. The hanboks, the suits, the overall presentation, it all highlighted how naturally elegant he looks in a fantasy setting. Then, A Shop for Killers flipped that completely. Darker tone, minimal styling, more grounded and dangerous energy, same face, completely different impression, and it still works just as well. 8. Rowoon.
왜 그렇게 이쁘게 하고 왔냐고.
하, 내 맘이에요.
시청 근처에서 내리면 모를 줄 알았나 봐. 권재경 차 타고 같이 출근하는 거 누가 보기로 한다면 어떻게 생각하겠어? 오해하기 딱 좋은 상황 아니야?
Standing at around 190 centimeters, Rowoon walks into a frame and you almost have to pause for a second. Because how is someone already that camera ready without even trying? When his exact height and proportions were confirmed publicly, it sparked its own wave of discussion. Because that combination, height, face, and build, isn't something you come across often, even in K-dramas. It really is the full package. What makes it work is how balanced his features are. Clean, defined, but never too sharp. Approachable enough for romance, structured enough to still feel like a leading man. He fits the genre so naturally it seems almost effortless. That's clearest in Destined with You, where everything played to his strengths. Tailored suits, intentional close-ups, and a fantasy romance tone that kept his face front and center. His stills were everywhere afterward, with fans noting how much he looked like he'd stepped straight out of a novel illustration. And outside of dramas, his presence in fashion, Calvin Klein campaigns, major events, confirms what's already obvious. Those proportions translate whether it's on screen or on the runway. Rowoon works because everything about his look fits. Height, structure, presence, it all aligns in a way that feels almost purpose-built for this genre. 7. Ahn Hyo-seop.
하리야. 누구셔? 아,
반갑습니다. 하리 씨 남자친구 강태무라고 합니다.
If I had to describe Ahn Hyo-seop in one word, it would be appealing. He's just incredibly easy to watch. The kind of presence that naturally draws your attention the moment he appears on screen. Tall, sharp, well-balanced features, clear skin, and a face the camera gravitates toward, especially in close-ups. And honestly, if he looks this good on camera, you can only imagine how striking he is in person. What really makes it work is how unforced it feels. He doesn't need heavy styling to carry a scene, but when a drama leans into that polished, high-end image, his presence elevates even more. That's exactly what happened in A Business Proposal. This is easily his strongest era. The suits, the CEO aura, the confidence, everything lined up to highlight his features. Every scene felt like it was built around him, and it worked. He looked almost too good in that role. And now, as he slowly steps onto the global stage, attending international events and gaining wider recognition, he still stands out just as easily, which, honestly, isn't surprising. His look translates effortlessly, and that range is exactly what makes his presence work anywhere. 6. Jo In-sung.
이러면 정말 알아?
알 것 같아. 모를 것 같아?
글쎄.
During Jo In-sung's prime, he wasn't just considered handsome, he was consistently placed at the very top, the kind of actor who showed up in every major ranking without much debate. And younger actors in the 2000s were naming him as the visual standard they looked up to, which says a lot about the kind of presence he carried. What makes his look work is how classic it is. Tall frame, broad shoulders, sharp features, and a composed masculine bearing that never relied on trends. It's the kind of face that holds up no matter the era. His most relaxed peak is visible in It's Okay, That's Love. The styling was loose, the confidence felt natural, and even the promotional photos were trending purely on the strength of how he looked in them. Then, that winter, the wind blows showed a more controlled, colder side. The drama leaned heavily into close-ups, and his features held up completely. Sharp, striking, needing nothing extra. Alongside Song Hye-kyo, he embodied exactly the kind of male lead that makes you forget what you were doing. And even with the constant rise of younger actors, his presence hasn't faded. It still lands the same way. That's what makes Jo In-sung different. His impact doesn't belong to one era. It carries across all of them. 5. Hyun-bin.
이거 입어봐요.
굳이? 지금 옷도 편한데.
내가 안 편해서 그래. 얼른 안내해주세요.
Before the term Hallyu star was everywhere, Hyun-bin was already setting the standard as what it means to be handsome in the industry. Broad shoulders, sharp nose, clean jawline. His features are built on a strong, masculine structure that doesn't fade with time. It just settles. The kind of face a camera locks onto instantly. My Lovely Sam soon introduced that presence early, but Secret Garden was when everything shifted. That was the era where his image went from top actor to defining standard. Korean media didn't just cover him, they named him the visual of that year. His face was everywhere: billboards, magazine covers, brand campaigns. What made it even more striking was how little effort it seemed to take. Even the most casual styling, like the now iconic tracksuits, worked because his features carried the look. The appeal wasn't in the clothes, it was already there. Then Crash Landing on You brought everything together. Military precision in styling, softer romantic close-ups, and a maturity that added real depth to his on-screen presence. It's the most fully realized version of Hyun-bin as a leading man. Even Sun Ye-jin, now his wife, has said he looks even better in person, which is kind of remarkable considering how strong his on-screen presence already is. 4. Seo Kang-joon.
공부 열심히 하고 선생님 말씀 잘 듣고 간다.
Most actors are remembered for their overall look, but Seo Kang-joon is remembered for one thing in particular: his eyes. They have that natural light brown, almost amber tone that's genuinely uncommon, even in K-drama. And people didn't just notice, they fixated on it. Korean online communities built entire threads around his eye color, with thousands of engagements breaking down how it shifts his presence on screen. Even female celebrities have pointed it out directly when asked about actors they find attractive. And that kind of specificity is rare. International fans picked up on it too, especially during Are You Human 2, where posts about his gaze kept circulating long after the drama ended. And that gaze is really what makes his face register differently. It can feel soft one moment, intense the next, and sometimes slightly unreadable, all within the same scene. That range gives his features a quiet but lasting impact. You see it best in When the Weather is Fine, where the entire tone leaned into subtlety. Soft lighting, minimal styling, close-ups that let his expressions carry. The weight. Nothing overdone, but it landed completely. That's Seo Kang-joon's thing. His face doesn't need to be loud to leave a mark. It works quietly, and somehow, that's exactly what makes it stick. 3. Byeon Woo-seok.
저 소라 나 너한테
로포즈
포즈 좀 취해봐.
프로포즈?
This rising actor just has that tall, elegant, model-built look that almost feels too precise for K-dramas. Long proportions, a clean jawline, and features that are sharp but soft enough to carry romance without effort. The moment everything really clicked was Lovely Runner. This was his breakout era. The styling, the soft lighting, the idol star image, the constant close-ups, everything was built to highlight him, and it delivered. As Sunjae, he didn't just look good, he looked like the kind of male lead the camera couldn't get enough of. And what makes his trajectory even more exciting is what's coming next. Perfect Crown is already shaping up to be another defining moment. The teasers lean into a more regal, almost fairy tale version of his image, and it suits him perfectly. He already looks striking in the previews, And once you add that smitten, love-struck energy he does so well, it's easy to see how strong this era could be, especially in showcasing just how good-looking he really is. He fits the modern K-drama male lead mold so naturally, but with that added model-like elegance that makes him stand out the second he appears on screen. And right now, it genuinely feels like he's just getting started. 2. Cha Eun-woo.
그럼 해줄까? 에이씨 진짜.
Be honest, is there even a face in the K-drama industry right now that people agree on more than Cha Eun-woo? At this point, face genius isn't just a compliment. It's essentially his title. It started as a term for rare, near-perfect proportions, but somehow ended up almost exclusively attached to him. And once you see it, yeah, it's hard to argue. And it's not just fans saying it. Multiple celebrities across different industries have named him when asked who the most handsome person they've encountered in real life is. Even Lee Jong-woo once admitted that standing next to him made him self-conscious about his own looks. And that moment spread quickly because it captured exactly what people already sensed. What's even more telling is how often his face trends on its own. Airport photos, event appearances, candid shots. He doesn't need a drama release to go viral. That kind of consistency is rare. His features are about as close to ideal as it gets. Near symmetrical proportions, clear skin, a sharp jawline, and that perfect balance between defined and soft. There's no obvious weak angle, which is harder to pull off than it sounds. True beauty remains his most direct showcase. The lighting, framing, and character were all built to highlight just how precise his features are. But what elevates him is range. In Island, he stepped away from the soft, romantic image and showed something darker and more intense. Then Wonderful World pushed further. Less. Polished. More worn in. Same face, completely different effect. Outside of dramas, his brand portfolio says it all. Dior, Saint Laurent, Calvin Klein, Chaumet. His image translates effortlessly across industries. 1. Kang Dong-won.
내가 당신이 필요했어요. 내가 같이 떠나고 싶었어요.
What kind of face makes even future stars question their own dreams? When V from BTS shared that he almost gave up on becoming a celebrity after seeing Kang Dong-won on a banner, because that was the standard he thought he had to meet, it said everything. At his peak, Kang Dong-won wasn't just part of the conversation, he was the conversation. Tall, impossibly lean, razor-sharp features, and an elegance that felt almost unreal. His proportions, his structure, even the way he carried himself. It all came together in a way that felt too precise to be accidental. And the cultural impact of that face wasn't ordinary. During his 20s, Korean media ran entire features analyzing his appearance alone. Not his roles, not his career, just his face, and why it looked the way it did. That level of attention is rare, even for top stars. He also had that era where multiple actresses openly named him as their ideal type. Bae Suzy, Shim Yoon-kyung, Jun Hyo-seong, not just casually, but consistently and without hesitation. What separates Kang Dong-won from everyone else on this list is that his look didn't just trend, it became a reference point. His peak-era photos still circulate today whenever people ask who the most handsome Korean actor is, and the conversation almost always circles back to him. That's not nostalgia. That's a face that set the standard so clearly, nothing has fully replaced it. Tall, sharp, elegant, and almost unreal, Kang Dong-won isn't just remembered as one of the most handsome actors. He's the blueprint every generation keeps returning to. And that wraps up our list. Now I'm curious, who's your number one when it comes to visuals? Personally, it's always been Jo In-sung for me. There's just something about his look that never fades. But what about you? Drop your top pick in the comments. I'll be reading them. And if you want to see your favorite actors at their absolute best, click on this next video. Do you think Hotel del Luna is IU's best project? Or does she have something even better? Go check it out and find out.